Hello, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. So, how are you? How's the
Doing,
storm over there?
yeah, apologies for missing the time slot back during the conference, but yep, we lost power here for about a day and a half. So, but here we are making up the time.
So, God is good, and here you are. We are so delighted to have you, Joshua. Okay, so I will read to you who is Joshua. Joshua is a graduate of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and a veteran of the United States Army and Army National Guard, where he served as an NCO and then as an officer. He's a successful entrepreneur, and throughout his career, he has co-founded, and led businesses in the technology, renewable energy, and sustainability sectors. In 2005, Joshua turned his attention to the renewable energy sector, teaming up to launch the first national residential solar leasing company in the United States. Through this venture, he discovered his passion for renewable energy, sustainability, and the future green economy. At this time, he also began working aggressively for positive climate change policy both in the United States and internationally. He launched Reventure in 2014, and the company now offers sustainability, renewable energy, coaching and advising, and accelerator services for promising clean tech and sustainability organizations. Reventure's portfolio currently includes clients ranging from medium large businesses to municipalities and state province level projects. In 2015, he launched a sister nonprofit to Reventure named The Building Brighter. This 501c3 builds sustainable tiny homes and micro apartments for the low income and the homeless. They currently have projects in Boston, MA, and Toronto, Canada. Finally, Joshua has served as a climate reality leader since 2015, and in March of 2017, he received the Green Ring Award in recognition of outstanding work towards solving the climate crisis from former Vice President and Nobel laureate Al Gore. Wow, that's so impressive. Wow, Joshua, we're delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you, Carrie. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So, what about talking about the first topic that you love to talk on Me Too, environmental justice?
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I spoke to everyone about right out of the gate is, there's been a lot of news about the United States when it comes to climate policy over the last 3 or 4 years. And even though we are, pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord and done a number of other damaging movements with regards to our EPA. There's a lot going on at the entrepreneurial business and state and local level. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. The one area that has been a specific concern is the environmental justice realm. And, just to give sort of an example of the type of fight that we still have going on right now, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States removed their jurisdiction over First Nations in the state of Oklahoma for approving environmental licensing and gave it to the state of Oklahoma so that the state of Oklahoma could skirt the First Nations rights and do oil permitting and fracking and other projects like that. So that's the latest sort of front line that we're at right now. But as most people know, going back to Standing Rock and everything that happened there, it's been a pretty
Harsh.
challenging 4 or 5 years.
And what steps are the NGOs or others taking to block this action? I mean,
Well, the amount of unity and cooperation between NGOs, nonprofits, and veterans organizations as well has been incredible. And Standing Rock, when we received the stay on that project before obviously Donald Trump won the election and then came in and pushed it forward, that was mainly because we had 10,000 U.S. veterans come from around the country to stand with the water protectors, and because of that, the Cheyenne River Sioux, which is the tribe adjacent to Standing Rock, gave a 50-acre land grant and a ranch for the veterans to operate there, so that they could continue to be part of the Standing Rock issue, but also the Keystone pipeline issue as well. So there's a lot of boots on the ground in these First Nations now, both veterans and NGOs, to stop this.
And are you seeing, like, in the way, any progress toward the minority communities?
That's an area that we really are going to have to count on Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris to move forward. And in Vice President Biden's plan, there's a significant portion that is focused around environmental justice. With this current administration, there's been nothing but the loosening of regulations around even the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. And so we've actually had a step backwards in the last 4 years with regards to environmental justice in the United States.
So do you think there's gonna be, like, different policies with the next election if Mr. Biden, like, wins the election? Do you think that he's gonna win? I don't know what the polls are. Like, we have different polls. I can read, like, CNN, BBC, like, there's a lot saying around there, and I'm like, okay, so what do you think about that? Like, who do you think is gonna win, right? I mean, the next president is gonna be, like, the most important one to be, like, one for making policies in the U.S. for climate change and environmental justice and climate crisis and all that is needed there.
Absolutely, you're spot on there, Carrie. And I would say at this point, after the trauma that we suffered in 2016, and thinking that was a slam dunk election, I'm going to say that I'm cautiously optimistic. All of the polling looks like it's going in the right direction. So at this point, 10 days out, I'm going to say that it's looking pretty good. But there's a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. So we need to just keep our eye on the ball, not worry about the polls, and basically work for Mr. Biden as if he's 10 points down instead of 10 points up. And that's sort of the plan that everybody's taking.
And what does everyone think about the possibility that Mr. Trump wins again?
When you look at the aggregate of the polls, he's given about a 10 to 12% chance. But when you look at the damage that he's done and the way he's behaved, it's pretty scary that he still has that high of a percentage of actually pulling it off. So, again, I'm going to say it's highly unlikely. But, if he does win the presidency, there's a very good chance that the Senate will fall into Democratic control, and that would be a very different dynamic. So worst case scenario, he's back in, but he's very much handicapped in what he can actually do.
So worst case scenario is the best, because if the Senate takes control, there's gonna be, like, more policies, and maybe you're back in the Paris Agreement.
Maybe there'll be a lot more legislation coming from the House and the Senate around climate change and around environmental justice and voting rights. Would a Trump administration sign on to those policies? I don't know. So to go back and answer your very first question when we started talking about the election, do we see that there would be a significant difference if Mr. Biden and Kamala Harris win? It would be night and day. They have a $2 trillion infrastructure and climate bill that they want to pass in the first 100 days. And about 30% of that bill is completely centered around environmental justice. So, and you could see in the last debate this past Thursday night, that's the first time in American politics that climate change has dominated about a third.
Yes, totally. I was like, yay, we are there. We are all there. Our voices, our votes, our toys. I mean, yeah, it was so exciting. Yeah, it was there. Like, like history shows a lot of environmental justice, like since a lot of years ago in the United States. And it's like the harm affecting communities of all type. And with the pipeline, I mean, it's I'm gonna read the Keystone Pipeline and the Flint, Michigan, that lead into drinking water, and the environmental racism. Also, all the deaths about these Black people that happened. I mean, there's like a whole policy there that maybe it could be like very, very detailed and taken through action, and it's not. Like a long time ago, US is still struggling with this. What do you think is that?
I wish that I had a great answer there, Carrie. One thing that I'll say, a good and bad result of Donald Trump's presidency is that we really saw a lot of people in different layers of government and at the state level, and unfortunately, even friends and family that we didn't really consider as people that you would consider having racist views or sort of being against environmental justice or voting rights or any of these things. And now that's sort of come to bubbling to the top, to the surface, and it's a little bit disheartening. But at the same time, we have because of the protests this summer and the tragedies at the hands of police, there's a major movement going on. And you've got to say that these younger generations that now are in the United States, a majority of voters as of this year, are there. They look at the world and they look at these issues in a very different way. So I think we're going to see some drastic change, but it's certainly been disheartening to see the level of racism and hate that we've seen over the last 4 years.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. So, do you have a company named Reventure, right?
Yes. Yep.
Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I started Reventure in 2014, and mainly what we were was a marketing company for solar, and it was mainly we were mainly marketing to residential and small commercial customers. And we've sort of gone through a metamorphosis over the last 6 years, where now we are what I would probably call a hybrid accelerator. And really what we do is there are certain technologies and companies that they need the money to get themselves to market. There are others that have the money, but they need help with the culture and the leadership side. And then there are others that have sort of fringe technologies that could really make a huge difference. And they just need to be brought together in a hybrid way with other clean tech and renewable energy. And so we facilitate those relationships. So we really have, moved from just solar to basically being a clean tech, climate tech / sustainability company. And we mainly focus on hybrid solutions to energy problems and a holistic approach to sustainability with all of our clients.
Right. And do you have like some of the existing new technologies that are being developed in the USA? Can you name it like around energy or sustainability and climate adaptation or mitigation, maybe?
Absolutely. So I won't really name the names of the companies, but we have a small wind company out of Massachusetts that is really exciting. The efficiencies that they're showing and their ability to couple with much smaller solar installations on homes and small businesses can literally take everyone off the grid at a really low price point per kilowatt. So that is a hybrid system that we're going to be putting a press release out this December, and we're really excited for what we can do there. There's a number of InStream is a company I can mention, and they are a small river and tidal company that has really sort of figured out along with a pumping system, how to keep that as a constant flow energy generation answer. And we're doing a project with them up in Marshall, Alaska on a First Nation municipality. And then we, of course, are seeing the golden unicorn over the rainbow of renewable energy technology, and that is cold fusion. And, we've been hearing for 50 years that in 10 years we're going to have cold fusion. But I can tell you that there's about 3 or 4 companies across the globe right now, one in the US, 2 in Europe, one in, I believe, I believe Mexico, that all are really, really close in kind of different ways to achieving that technology. Now, once you've achieved the cold fusion reaction, the next bit of it is how do we control that reaction safely so that it's something that can power everyone's homes and be in our businesses. But there's the technology and the pace of technology right now is probably what has me the most excited about solving the climate crisis.
So this is gonna be like more like a public question, like from the public that you're watching, like solar panels, right? You quote enterprises, you quote states, you quote like municipalities, you quote a lot of sustainability measurements and strategies to go
Yes.
green. So a solar panel for a house, like a common house for 2 bedrooms, how many solar panels do we need to have electricity in our homes using computers, using microwaves, like everything? And what happens at night? Like we need light at night. So
I love this question because you just tied the solar question into that small wind company that I was just talking to you about. So, on average, and I'm speaking just strictly from the United States, the average home, it needs about 10,650 kilowatt hours per year to power itself. And now with this small wind technology that's coming in at about $2.50 a kilowatt, which is very competitive with other costs for renewable energy, we have the smallest system can with 10-mile an hour, an average of 10-mile an hour winds and an average of 10 hours a day, can produce 7,300 kilowatt hours a year. So that
wow.
means that you now have the small wind, which wind is normally blowing strongest at night, is producing that mainly in the evening, and you can have a much smaller system like a 6K type system on your roof to line up with that and can literally take your home off of the grid. So these are the types of things that we're talking about, combining with all of the new technology we're seeing coming along in efficiencies, and then you combine small wind and solar, and it's really a game changer right now. And just to for the audience, if they want to look at this, everyone thinks of wind as those massive turbines. We all know that there's aesthetically, a lot of communities fight them. There's certainly been issues with migratory bird issues, and we're losing birds, and they found some answers there. But with this is what's called a vertical wind turbine, and these are actually panels, and it's turning in a circular motion. There's no danger to wildlife, and they're actually per pound far more efficient than the large turbines that you're seeing out there. So it's this is a technology that I think is really going to change the game, especially in the residential market.
And what about the indigenous tribes? Like, how can you do that for them? I mean, they don't have that in mind. So how can you like go there and change their mindsets about having all renewable energy substitution for all that they have?
They actually lead the way and are some of the most inspiring leaders out there on this. I mean, you want to talk about peoples, and it doesn't matter. We're not just talking about the United States, we're talking about indigenous communities anywhere around the world. They have the historical, environmental, knowledge and understanding that most of these our other societies just don't have. And a great story is when we started to help Be Wind come to market, we approached the Cheyenne River Sioux Nation out in South Dakota. That's the nation that's adjacent to Standing Rock. that set us our organization up with a ranch out there, and they have a town on their reservation that has the school is no longer in use. A number of commercial buildings are no longer in use, all connected. And now we're talking about having that be the where we see the manufacturing facility for this being built to cover the Midwest and the far west of the U.S. So they're leading the way, and they are going to be, a lot of the folks that are building these turbines and are deploying them out in the United States, and those are really the partnerships that we're looking to build.
What about environmental justice and policies with these indigenous in the United States? I remember that there was a tribe in Florida that they were called the Mapuches or something, and they have like their own rules and their own like city or something, and they were protesting against the government because they wanted to invade them and take their territories. And it's like a movie, like cowboy movie or something. It's really weird. What about the policies from indigenous tribes there in the United States? What for them? Are they valuable for the government, or they are not interested in them and they just lose them?
Well, right now with this particular administration, they don't have any focus or
we cannot speak with this administration.
Yes. but what's really sad is that throughout our history, we signed these treaties and gave them their own lands back in the mid to late 1800s. And over and over and over again, when oil was discovered or gold was discovered, or we needed to build a new highway, or in the case of Standing Rock, we needed to transport our fossil fuels from one place to another, we would just up and violate those treaties on a whim. So this is not just a Republican issue or a Donald Trump issue. This is a deeply held weakness within our government, top to bottom, with both parties, as far as treating these people the way they deserve to be treated. And I have, again, cautious optimism that that's going to be a focus of a Biden-Harris administration. But, this is one of those areas that it's going to really take progressive groups and folks on the environmental justice side pushing them constantly to do the right thing, because we've never really seen these First Nations or these amazing people ever treated the way that they deserve to be treated. And so until we start to see that change, it needs to be show us, don't tell us.
Right. I mean, we are speaking always about the climate crisis and the climate change and environmental justice and the mitigation of emissions of carbon dioxide and methanol and all the nutrients that the earth needs and blah, blah, blah. But I think we need to change our mindsets to the renewed sustainability in our minds. Like I was like listening to you, and the indigenous tribes are so much respectful for a lot of people around all the globe. Not yet United States. I mean, Brazil, the Amazons they're burning literally, and they don't care. So I think that governments, that they have the power there to make policies, they have to be more conscious about what they are doing, because they're killing people, innocent people and animals and whatever God created, they're doing it, and it's not good. It's really bad for ages now. So I think that really our vote, our choice, our voice needs to be spoken out in every single country, no matter who you are or where you are, right?
Absolutely.
So you know that I have a lot of issues about this pandemic. What's going on in the United States?
I wish we knew.
Oh my God.
It's like everything else in our society right now, it's become political. I don't know. I was talking to a few people the other day, and you think back, my country has made a lot of mistakes in its history, and it has its weaknesses and its strengths, just like every other country that's out there. But you look back and you could see, the generation that went off in World War II and fought for, democracy and freedom and the suffering that they undertook to do that, just like everyone else that was involved in that conflict. And you look at the people that suffered through the Great Depression in the United States. And so here comes along a virus that is really dangerous to very specific sectors of the population. And you have about half of the country out there saying, you're not gonna take away my right not to wear a mask. This is too tough. We're asking people to stay home for what may be, a lot more than you would like to for a year and a half. Not go out to dinner, not meet in large groups.
You missed that, right?
Wear a mask and social distance. I mean, this is this generation's challenge. You had people that went to war. You had people that were suffering through huge economic downturns. We just have to stay home and keep each other safe, and we can't even do that. So it's really a political issue, and I think what's going to have to happen when Joe Biden is elected, and I'm just going to keep talking positively, like that's how it's going to go. I do think there's going to need to be a mask mandate, and there may need to be a bit of a shutdown of the country to get the levels of the pandemic down below that 10,000 cases a day. Because right now, yesterday we hit 83,000 in one 24-hour period, and it looks like today is going to go past that. So we have this in the United States of America that has some of the best pharmaceutical companies, some of the best medical technology that's out there. And you have people like Dr. Fauci saying very simple things: wash your hands, keep distance from each other, and put a mask on, and we can save hundreds of thousands of lives. And you have so many people that are just not willing to do that, and it's again disheartening and a part of sort of what the wedge that this administration's kind of driven down the center of this country.
Right. And here's a simple question for you. You will love it.
Yeah.
What about the veteran mindset about climate change and climate crisis? And I want to tell you why. I think, first of all, I want to thank you for your choice for being a veteran. I mean, it's so loyal and noble from your part. So I have this opportunity to say thank you. I am not a U.S. resident, but I am human, and I know or can imagine what you go through for that, and your nobility. It's amazing. So thank you so much. And after that, you know why? Because when you are in the army, you see a lot of things, and most of them is what you breathe where you go. So you will be having like the experienced and practical mindset about that, and nobody tells you what is going on. You know what is going on because you've been there. So what about veterans and climate change?
So that's one of the areas that I'm really excited about. Normally the United States military is not a leader in societal change. We were last on integrating, well, not with races, but with LGBTQ rights and things like that. With regard to climate change, it's probably the most respected organization in the United States, and it on a regular basis stands in the halls of power and tells the Republicans that what they are saying is ridiculous and not based on science, and that climate change is a defense concern for not only the United States but for the world, a national security concern. So and that's even conservatives within the military feel that way. So that's been something that's been heartening. And then I'll just tell a story that I like to tell, and it's around Standing Rock, Carrie. There were 10,000 of us. We organized and went out there to when things started to go badly, and we pulled into this one little town on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation. driveway, and they just wrapped their arms around all of us and just started to cry. And in their entire history, especially the United States Army was seen as a threat, was seen as someone that was there to suppress them and to put them down and to put them into these reservations, and we were the enemy. And so now it was this huge sort of transition where these veterans came from all over the United States to stand up for these people and to say, look, we need to right these wrongs, and we were part of these wrongs, and we're here to stand up against the federal policy. And so you're starting to see episodes like that and examples like that all around the country. And I've also noticed it in Canada too, because Reventure is actually based in Canada. We have a US subsidiary, but we do a lot of work in Canada as well. And this latest administration, as they still have work to do, and they still aren't doing everything perfect, but their attitude and the way that they work with the First Nation communities in Canada is very promising, and sort of as an example for where I hope the United States can get to.
That's incredible. So, do you believe that the world could see international climate policy leadership from the U.S. Like under Joe Biden? Do you really believe that?
I believe it to my core, and one of the things. One of the things, as you know, that Mr. Gore talks about all the time is that Donald Trump blusters and is a blowhard about the Paris Climate Accord, and he pulled us out of it. But the timeline means that we're not officially out of the accord until the day after the election in 10 days. So literally, if Joe Biden,
I know that's incredible. That's amazing. I will be like in my set TV. I will be like with popcorn, like whoa, yeah.
So Joe Biden can signal to the United Nations and the Accord that as soon as he's inaugurated on January 21st, we are going to get back into the Paris Agreement. And unlike the 2 years that you need to exit, it's only 30 days to get back in. So literally by mid-March of 2021, the US is back in. And what's even more heartening, because I think we all know that the Paris Climate Accord was a great start, but it's not really meeting its goals, and its goals were aiming a little low to begin with, is that Mr. Biden understands that he can't go back to the policies of Barack Obama, that it's time for much more aggressive and transitional change, and he means to bring that type of leadership to the next COP in Scotland. So I'm very excited about where the U.S. can go as far as leading on climate policy again.
And what about the Environmental Protection Agency that gave Oklahoma the authority over many tribal environmental issues? Are they taken care of, or it was a bluff?
So at the head of all of the agencies, there are political appointees, but within the agencies themselves, you have scientists and folks that have been with these organizations for 20 plus years that are dedicated to the different areas that they work in. So there have been quite a few people within the EPA that have retired and quit because of what this administration has turned it into, but it's going to reverse very quickly in the other direction once there's a Democratic
right.
even desire to know the way our government works.
Right. And when you coach, right, enterprises, corporations, what is the difference between a municipality or for a government state to a household, to an enterprise or a corporation?
So that is a fantastic question. One of the directions we began to move in as soon as Trump was elected was we said to ourselves, look, the one thing that Republicans care about is business. They're big supporters of big business, small business. They're not big supporters of
You need to stay living there, you know. You need to live there. You know that? I mean, I can have you here. I can have you like this, but I'm telling you, live there.
yeah. But what we did realize was that at the municipal and state level, no matter if it's a Democratic-led state or a Republican-led state, it tends to just move. The process is very slow. The environmental permit process. There's all sorts of ways to gum up progress. So what we did was, instead of going and talking directly to municipalities and states, is we started going and finding the different technologies and the different answers within renewable energy, sustainability, and climate tech, and brought them together to form private public partnerships with the states and the municipalities. And that way, we weren't asking for governments to go through the entire process and bring all the money to the table. There was money coming from the private sector as well. And then the private sector and business does have a way of pushing the government to move a little bit faster on the permitting process than, those of us that are sort of in the non-NGO side of things. So we've started to see some progress there from using that model, but we'd really like to push it forward and see that we could build even more momentum.
So, which are the strategies and which are the measurements that you advise a corporation that wants to go green?
So we've moved away really from advising individual companies on how to go green. And we really sort of try to focus on the 4 Ps, right? Which is people, planet, profit, and purpose. And that way, because a lot of companies, 10 years ago, even up to about 5 years ago, they were looking to companies like ours to help them with their PR problem. They were looking to do a project or do something to just be able to say, hey, look, we're green. We have one LEED building. So now we're trying to kind of coach them on a holistic approach and talk to them about the fact that when you look at the generations that are coming up right now and what's important to those workers, it's climate change and it's sustainability. And so you have to marry sustainability of the planet and your operations with the sustainability of your entire business. Because if you don't change on this subject, these people are going to go work for your competitors that are doing that. So that's the message that we're really bringing, and we're trying to sort of change mindsets that way and empower them to make them feel as though they're the ones that are driving that change rather than us prescribing it to them.
So, what will be the 4 Ps that you just mentioned for a household?
So for a household, we don't do so much anymore with residential. We got away from that with solar, but we are going to get into it a little bit. Yeah.
Why? It was very complicated, right?
It was very complicated, and because of the regulatory process on each project, it was just it wasn't going to make enough of a GHG emissions reduction happen as fast as we could do in the commercial sector. So that was just a personal decision that we made. But I do think that we've reached the point now. The climate plan that Joe Biden is putting together, it has 67% support of the American people. And that's spending $2 trillion to implement this plan. So when you get 67% of the United States to agree on ice cream or anything, you're doing really well, because right now we don't agree on much at all. So the fact that plan receives that type of support is really going to push and move the residential market as well. And I mean, when we give our climate reality presentations, or we're out there talking to anybody about climate change, what's the last thing that they ask us at the end of our presentations? What can I do? What can I do? I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have my job. I come home. I've got to make dinner. I get everybody to bed. I'm wiped out. I get up the next day and I start all over. How can I make a difference? And those are the types of questions we need to be able to start helping to answer with, the food that they buy and use, the way that they get their energy. There are programs where you can purchase renewable energy. You don't have to actually put the systems on your own home. So that's sort of the micro process, in the conversations we're having right now. But again, I think there are other companies and other business leaders that you could talk to that would know a lot more about that, because the residential market is more of their focus.
Right. And you know that United States is the second country with bad emissions after China. And
Yes.
it's not, I think, like Mr. Trump's administration for that. It's like a long time ago for that.
Mhm.
And is there any change in the pandemic that people are not out and they're locked down and enterprises had to close? Is there any change in the atmosphere?
There's significant change, and that is something that we were celebrating, but we knew it wouldn't sustain once everything came roaring back. And it was actually infuriating that at the debate the other night, that Trump took credit for that he said that right now with the US has the lowest emissions that it's ever had. Well, that's because you didn't handle the pandemic correctly and half the country is shut down. It's nothing that you did policy wise. So um I think the greatest sort of example I can point to for why there's hope with this moving forward and us significantly reducing our emissions is that we're working with municipalities and states all over the country on what their plan is to get to zero emissions. And 10 years ago, the only thing that you could get them to talk about was 2050. And we all know that 2050 it's not going to do it. We need to get to zero really by 2030. And we've reached the point now where we're putting plans together for cities and states where they're going to be able to get to zero carbon emissions, and that's including heat and transportation by the 2030 to 2035 timeframe. So that's another area that is exciting, and that we see change coming along. And if we now have the support of the federal government behind that, that will only expedite that process and help a number of communities that would probably not be able to afford that transition on their own.
You know that Denmark, everybody goes in bicycles, like for
Yes.
everything. Do you think
Yes.
the United States can do that?
We
That's
have
like,
there are two crazy obsessions that Americans have. One that most of the rest of the world doesn't understand. We have an obsession with our guns, and we have an obsession with our large cars, our SUVs.
yes.
Um, the one thing that I'll say is in all the major cities now, when you travel around the US, I mean, it's been like this in Miami for a long time because of the climate. But I mean, even in the Bostons, New Yorks, and Chicagos of the world, there are bike lanes all over the city, and you're definitely seeing a lot more bike traffic. You're seeing a lot more of those stations where you can rent bikes. But am I seeing it at the level that I see when I'm in the EU? Not even close. So
Like fossil fuels are the main principal emissions. So that, I mean, by bicycles, you're going to reduce a lot in the United States. You can
yes.
go from the second country to the last one. Maybe that's good or forbidden. So what about the challenges that are still ahead in the United States for minority and indigenous communities? Do you think that Biden's gonna, like, yes, he's gonna do something. He's gonna make new policies, environmental justice policies.
I think that we get to take a deep breath and really celebrate on November 4th if Joe Biden wins. And I think we get to celebrate on January 21st when he's inaugurated. And other than that, I think all of us that are involved in this cause need to begin putting pressure on the people in his administration to follow through on what they said they were going to do from day one. We can't let them slip back into a comfort zone where they're not pushing the envelope and they're not having the tough conversations. And I will say, another thing that gave me hope in the debate the other night was I almost fell off my chair when Joe Biden says, I'm going to transition us away from fossil fuels. For an American politician to say that out loud at a national debate is, we have come a long way. So for him to have, put his
He has
stamp.
his bicycle outside, that's why.
So I'm hopeful that we're moving in that direction. And I think for us, with our culture, I think where the most promise is in the transition to electric vehicles. I think that's probably the most likely and most expedient way to get to zero emissions from the transportation sector. I wish I could say that bicycles and that type of transportation was going to catch on, but I'm not sure that I believe that will happen.
It will be awesome, like fast food and bicycles, like
Yeah.
they match. It will be awesome. So thank you so much, Joshua. Please, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, with your company, what do they do?
Okay, well, best thing to do is you can go to reventure.co and you can contact us there. You can also email me directly at joshua@reventure.co. I'd love to, talk to any of the attendees or your guests about any of their thoughts and ideas. And, we talked a lot today about North America and about the United States and Canada, but we've got project managers in Mexico and the European Union. So we would love to talk to people that have ideas and projects that they would like help on moving forward.
What is the difference between Mexico and the UA and United States and Canada of what they are doing there in different countries with your 4 Ps, right?
So our Mexico footprint right now is only focused on this one particular project that I won't get too deep into because they're about to make a big announcement after the first of the year, but it's called a Century City. And there's this area along the Pacific coast of Mexico that they're literally going to build a green city up from nothing, and it's going to be done in a way that is going to not only just be set up for the wealthy, but also for middle income, lower income, and really look at everything from a sustainability standpoint and how a community should sort of be set up and focused. And so that's where we're sort of helping with some consulting. But it's all Mexican companies and Mexican leaders, and I'll say female Mexican leaders that are at the head of this project that are really making this going. We're just there mainly to support and to offer guidance on some certain pieces of technology. So everybody should keep their eyes open for that come February.
So do they need to climb the wall right now? I mean, what's going to go on with the wall? Oh my God.
Yeah. The wall is not something that we're going to have to be worrying about after January. And, from what we hear, there's only been about 40 miles actually built. And the sort of running joke around here is that they had an engineering company go down a couple weeks ago, and one of the sections is already months away from collapsing because it was built so quickly and it was built so poorly. So this wall is one of these things that is just something that is a talking point. It's never been policy that most Americans support, and it's never come to fruition. So we once again will be opening our arms to our Mexican neighbors and those that want to come to our country from around the world. We do have to do some things differently, even with Trump out, to improve our immigration system and what the borders are like. But it'll be very different from what's going on right now.
So if you had the opportunity to go to Mr. Biden and give him a project, which theme or which subject of all that you know that is wrong will be the first project to give to him?
100%. I'm sure. I'm not positive, but have you heard of a woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Yes, please, but tell everyone. Yes.
Yes. So she and Senator Markey from my state came up with something that's called the Green New Deal. And back in the 40s, when we were recovering from the Great Depression, what was called the New Deal was put in place, and that created tons of jobs. And it sprang the United States into the technology leader that it is today. And they have a plan called the Green New Deal that I think would create a lot of jobs and would make a huge difference in how quickly we can make this transition. And I would say to him, go in that direction, because that will solve multiple problems rather than sort of piecemealing the process.
So that's what's awesome about you. The four P's that you're using as work and to help others, you're the ones that you always use for yourself. So that speaks that what you're doing is what you are also. So that's wonderful. That's
Well,
wonderful.
I appreciate you saying that, and I can say the same thing back to you, Carrie. So
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you so much, Joshua. It was so amazing to have you here. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It was amazing. I mean, all the information that you gave to us. We don't know what's going on in the United States. We can watch the news, and there's a lot of news going on, but we don't know the deep about the United States, and that what's better than the one that is living in the United States and is the one there doing all the thing, activating all the climate crisis and all the environmental justice policies that they need to have there. So
yes.
thank you so much. Do you
Well,
want to say something else to our audience?
I just want to say thank you for having me. And again, anyone that would like to reach out and talk about any of the topics we brought up today, or would like to talk about a project that they're working on, I would love to have that conversation. So thank you again, Carrie.
Thank you, everybody, for watching us again another Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I have a wonderful news to you. We're going to have our new section called Vision every Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We are going to have a new paradigm of going to have perspective versus reality. How do we see each single subject in our planet and in our purposes to each other? So don't forget, every Saturday afternoon, your time zone Vision, it's coming to us to Lima, the Environmental Lawyers League with the seat in Mexico. Thank you so much for watching us.